Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the public board meeting of IBCA.
Thank you. We've got 5 actions in the papers today. There are 3 that will be continuing to remain open for the time being whilst additional work is done. Those are actions 156, 157 and 161. There are 2 actions which will be closed. Action 162 is going to be closed as it was completed last week. And action 163 is to bring the terms of reference for the Quality Finance and Performance Committee to this board, and those terms of reference are presented in the papers for discussion here, so we will close the session. Thank you.
Thanks very thanks very much for that. Are there any new declarations of interest from members of the board? None? None of it? Good. Just as a technical point, I am hearing an echo of my own voice, which is slightly disturbing. Just as long as it's not interfering with people hearing, I will continue. So the next item then is our update of the strategic delivery report, which is in the papers, and I'll ask David to introduce it.
Thank you, Sir Robert. There are a few items that I would like to bring people's attention to within the information within the pack. I'll start with the latest registration claims and compensation data. You'll know that we publish these every fortnight, and our next installation is to be published tomorrow. So the data that we have in this pack is from the last published data. Obviously, we only share the numbers once they have been published, so look out for the new data tomorrow. But I can reassure the board that over the last 4 weeks, we have been steadily increasing the number of living infected compensation claims invited to begin, and this will be reflected in tomorrow's statistics. And I expect to see even more increases for living infected, never compensated claims in the following weeks. The reason we've been able to invite more living infected, never compensated claims to begin is that our confidence levels are higher in processing this type of claim. Many of the issues that we have come across are similar to those already resolved for the first group of claims. As a reminder, those who are infected and registered with a support scheme. For those representing deceased infected people and those who are affected, we're continuing to bring people into the claim service, but those numbers will not yet be as high as for the link claims. This is while we work through issues such as evidence needed and probate or confirmation being in place for estates. So if I give you the numbers as published in the last publication date, IBCA opened the Register Your Intent service on the 9th of October 2025. Since then, we've received 18,309 registrations of intent to make a compensation claim with us. This is an increase of 256 since the last publication. And this figure, of course, represents individual registrations, not unique people or claims. This is because some people may have registered more than once. If I break that number down, of the 18,309, 1,222 registrations of intent are from a living infected person or their representative. This does not include those claiming as living with infection and registered with a support scheme, as they should already have been contacted beforehand. There are 2,560 registrations of intent from people acting on behalf of a deceased infected person. 14,183 registrations of intent from a living affected person or their representative. 346 registrations of intent relating to a living infected and affected person or their representative. Registrations for deceased affected claims have opened this week following regulations being made in Parliament, and that now means that registration is open for every part of the scheme. I'll move on from registration data to claims brought in and the private beta. So a total of 4,004 people have been asked to start their claim. This includes 3,626 living infected people registered with an existing support scheme, 192 living infected people who have never been compensated, 96 people acting on behalf of a deceased infected person, and 90 affected people. To note, again, we expect some of those figures to increase in statistics published tomorrow. 3,789 have started the claim process. And this includes 3,485 living infected people registered with an existing support scheme, 145 living infected people who have never been compensated, 82 people acting on behalf of a deceased infected person, and 77 affected people. I'll go on now to talk about compensation offers and payments. So far, 3,304 people have received an offer. The total value of offers made is more than £2.6 billion. A total of 3,201 people have had their compensation paid, and the total figure paid to these people is just under £2.1 billion. We have paid some people in all groups and continue to do so. Robert, that's the update on numbers. Would you like me to pause there to see if there are any questions or queries before I go on to the other parts of my update?
Yes, thank you. Colleagues, any questions or observations on progress to date?
Just a quick question, David. There's quite a big financial difference between the value of offers and the value of payments. Is that because a number of the people receiving payments opted to continue with the support scheme payments rather than the?
I don't know the answer to that, so that's an interesting question. I don't know if there's anybody else who does. If not, we'll take it away to Chris. Lee.
Yeah, so I think primarily the difference between the offers made and the payments that we've done are exactly as you described, because the people have elected to take the slightly smaller lump sum and continue the support scheme payments for life. There will also be obviously a lag where we've made an offer but people haven't yet accepted it in order to get the payment. So it'll be a mixture of both of those, but predominantly in the former.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There are a number of claims in so the CAR. Could you just share a little bit more about those and how have we been able to move any of those forward?
Yes, so we have just over 200 claims awaiting resolution that are being resolved. That is a number considerably smaller than the total number of claims awaiting resolution we have had in total. We continue to work to resolve every single one of those, and the largest reason that a claim is awaiting resolution is awaiting information, with the majority of those claims awaiting resolution awaiting for information from one of the National Health Services.
Rob?
David, could you say something about generally the pace in which claims are being processed in terms of where we're coming from and where we want to go to, please?
Yeah, thank you, Sir Rob. So where we are at the moment is, I would describe as twofold. One is we are concluding the core awards for those living registered infected and making sure that the last of those are done. And we are developing in a private beta approach, similar to the way we did last year with the living registered infected, though at the other three cohorts. The numbers, as people will see tomorrow, in terms of that are in the private betas, are growing. And I would draw a comparison with the progress that we made last year with the living registered infected cohort. When we paid the first claim in December of the year before, we had 244 claims in action by March of last year, and by the end of the year, we'd paid over 3,000 claims.
So do you expect the same kind of progression?
I do expect a similar progression, yes. And that's our objective is to be able to process the claims and understand how they operate in order to meet that acceleration that we would like to see. Clearly, at the moment, we have 3 private betas all simultaneously live. That has a complication to how we're developing it, but that's the acceleration that we are striving to achieve.
I have a question, David, which is, bearing in mind we are in this test and learn phase, can you or your colleagues give us any idea of the sort of things that we're learning that we might not have known about otherwise?
Well, we can.
Want to start, or should I? Yeah, so test and learn then. So within the 3 private betas, when it comes to affected, it's about obviously learning how to prove that relationship with the foundational claim. And obviously we need that foundational claim in as well. So that's the infected person, to be able to take the affected person through. So we've learned a lot about the type of evidence that people need to actually prove that. I think we're almost through every sort of claim, you know, whether it's a mother, a father, a spouse, or a carer, so that we understand more fully the evidence, so that when we do get a scale, and as David described, then we are aware, and we can share with the community as well the types of evidence that we need to prove those relationships. For deceased infected, I think it's fair to say, Celine, isn't it, that we've learned a lot about probate and about representatives and the information that we need to show that. But also as well, you know, whilst we have people that have been previously registered deceased infected with support schemes, what we look for was slightly different. So we've been able to learn what the difference is in the information that we need, whether that be the different severity levels, or of course the previous support schemes didn't pay out for hepatitis B. So the kind of evidence we need to be able to show hepatitis B, especially with those that sadly died as well. And living infected never compensated, as David said, I think we're able to expand in private beta a lot quicker than the other groups, because a lot of the learning's the same as previous, in terms of what evidence we need, what information we need, all the things that are causing us to take a little bit longer, as David says, is waiting for that information from the NHS. And on top of all of that, of course, a lot of the process is the same, but they are all different. So all the different parts of the process, we're having a look to see what sort of issues accumulate at each stage of the process, IDV being one of them. Board took an early decision on having a high degree of confidence when it comes to IDV because of the potential for fraud. We're learning a lot as we're going through this test and learn about the things that might stop us being able to verify people to that high degree, and also what we need to do to help them through, including assisted digital. I think it's fair to say we're taking a lot more people through assisted digital than perhaps we had anticipated. So by doing this and doing tests and learn, it will enable us obviously to unpick all of those issues now, rather than wait to go live and find all of those issues to resolve later on. They're the key things, I would say.
Could I just pause things for a moment? We're experiencing some audio issues, so sorry to everyone who's watching online. We know that there's a bit of an echo when the chair speaks. So Robert, I'm really sorry. If we can pause for just a minute. We've got IT colleagues.
You will know as well as I do that there's been a lot of community concern about the level of identification, verification we are after. Could you confirm or otherwise from your experience so far that this level of, as it were, confidence, security is actually necessary?
So it's a bit early to say with any massive degree of confidence, given the small numbers that we've taken through the process. So, you know, there might be a thought out there that we haven't identified a lot of fraud so far, but given the volumes that we have taken through, and that's perhaps to be understood. We do have a process where we can allow exceptions if people are unable to provide the high level of identity that we need to be able to take them through. But for now, whilst we're still testing, we are actually actively reviewing the whole IDV process at the minute, aren't we, Celine? Just to make sure that what we're looking for, what we're seeking, is the right thing to do. We're also testing our risk appetite for it. as it stands, the fraud risk assessments that we've undertaken and sort of had validated by the public sector fraud authority and others, we believe to be the right degree of robustness. And until we really take more claims through and see anything else, then I would see no real reason for us to retest that at this stage. Not sure.
I think, I just add to that, I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that we handle public money well, and each of our individual payments is quite substantial, and therefore we do need to be able to have confidence that we are paying the right person. And in the absence of any other supporting mechanism, I think high confidence gives us the ability to demonstrate it.
Just to add exactly to that, I think there is an element here of it's the financial value of the awards, but also we are very cognizant of the sensitivity of the information that we are holding about individuals. And so that is why we made the original decision that our confidence was right for what we are doing. But as Cindy said, we're recognising the fact that for a small number of people, it will not be possible to get to something which is genuinely high confidence, and therefore we are looking at how we can put together a basket of different indicators to give us a similar level of confidence, even though it doesn't follow the standard high confidence identity journey. And we will support people throughout the whole of that process as well, because we recognise that it can be difficult for people while they're trying to find that kind of documentation and work through it.
Thank you very much for that. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Robert. So I'm going to move on now to the transfer of the infected blood support schemes. As the board will know, the successful transfer of the infected blood support schemes is a legal requirement for the organisation, and one that is reflected in our draft business plan. It's important that we deliver this transfer on time to meet our legal duties, as well as to provide certainty to those in the community. As you'd expect, the transfer requires joined up delivery from colleagues right across our organisation, as well as collaboration with schemes themselves and with the Cabinet Office. We will need to continue to deliver this at some speed over the summer and into the autumn to ensure that we deliver on time. We will provide an update on this work to the board when it meets in July to give them the latest position.
Thank you for that. Can I just on that point? Can I just emphasise, as I'm sure you know, thank you for undertaking to bring this back in July. I'm going to suggest that this is something that comes back to us every board meeting that we have. It is imperative that we get this work done, and it does have the capacity to interfere, and does it not, with the delivery of payments, which is obviously what we're largely set up to do.
Exactly that, Robert. It is a balancing act between the resources we have as to what choices we make. Clearly, this is both a legal responsibility for us, and also something that we want to do to make sure there's a seamless transfer across from the existing schemes. It will take some resource to do it.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Check if there are any further questions. No. In which case, I'll move on to. Thank you, Robert. The 4 regulations. The Cabinet Office has now published their response to the consultation they did on the 4 regulations. This includes uplifts to the core award and changes to the supplementary awards. The government intends to formally lay regulations before Parliament later this year. Once those regulations are approved by Parliament and come into law, we'll then have the powers to review, update and pay the agreed compensation amounts. We will now carefully review what these proposed changes mean for supporting and paying compensation claims, including past, current and future claims. We will also develop plans for the delivery of supplementary payments once we have final versions of the regulations. These are both substantial delivery undertakings, and we'll need to discuss our approach to delivery of the board as we understand more about the detail and the timings. I'd like to reassure the board that we're using our experience of processing the third set of regulations, which came into law on the 31st of December 2025. And when we know which claims will be implemented by the fourth regulations, we will work with those affected and review, change and update their payments. So pause there to see if there are any thoughts or questions on the fourth regulations.
Tim,
Yeah, just brief one from me. I was under the impression that the legislation would be in place before the summer recess. Is that correct or not?
I think that's subject to the parliamentary timetable. So I know the government is keen to lay the regulations in Parliament before then. I think whether they are maybe turned into law.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
could I ask David whether we've yet made an assessment of the potential impact, assuming the regulations follow the government announcement, will have on awards already made, on our needing to rework awards that are already made? Do we have any clue about that yet?
Thank you. I think as part of our business planning, we need to think about what's the right sequence and combination of different types of both claim management and revisiting claims that are due extra work of it. So this is all work that we will have to evaluate as part of that.
Thank you.
Okay, in which case let me move on to, move on to finance then, and I'll cover the finance components of this. So our provisional full year outturn for 2025-26 is a total spend of £126 million, which is against a total budget of £136 million. This is, as you see, an underspend of around 7%. This comprised an underspended operational and legal costs, primarily professional services. I think in many ways this was to be expected, as the model numbers held a number of assumptions and we were very conservative about the assumptions that we used there. And they were offset by an overspend in technical development costs as we accelerated through the development last year. And in particular, the latter part of that had been pre-agreed with the Cabinet Office as part of the ministerial request and challenge to see if we could accelerate delivery and pay more living registered effective people faster. Given the scale of IBCA's growth over the financial year and the rate of development, this credible outturn position and preparation of the annual report and accounts is now well underway, with the first draft due to be reviewed by the Audit, Risk and Assurance Committee in 2 weeks' time. The budget position for 2026-27 is being finalised, and I hope to discuss it later on. I'll pause there, Robert, before we move on to a leadership update.
Any questions? And wave your hand.
No hands, I think.
No hands.
Yeah, I'll move on to leadership update. As part of our commitment to transparency, I want to formally put on record some key changes to the IBCA executive leadership team. These adjustments are designed to ensure our leadership structure is directly aligned with our evolving strategic priorities and the needs of our stakeholders. So first, I want to share that John Kelly, our Director of Data, has moved on to a new role at the Department for Education. John has been with us through the early stages of building our systems from scratch. And I'd like to say a formal thank you to him for getting us to this point and wishing him well. I've taken the opportunity to reshape the leadership team at this juncture. So I've asked Cindy Skeldon to take on the role of Chief Operating Officer. Her focus is pretty simple, I think, Cindy, in that sense. It's continue to drive operational readiness and delivery of the service. And Celine McLaughlin will now lead a single unified digital and data team. In the past, these have been separate functions, and by merging them, we continue to ensure that the technology we use and the data we rely on are working towards a single goal, making the application process as simple and stress-free as possible for every person taking it in play. So Celine takes the role of Chief Digital and Information Officer. These changes are not about adding more layers of management. Actually, in fact, we're doing the opposite. We are streamlining how we work so that my leadership team is as close as possible to the front line. Our focus remains, as always, on delivering the service and the compensation that the community is due. Aside from those changes, Rachel Forster, our Director of Communications, will be taking a short leave of absence for a medical procedure, and we're recruiting an interim Director of Communications to cover this period. That's it on leadership, Robert, and I've got one final section on community-driven.
Well, just before you move
development.
on, just before you move on, David, I'm sure on behalf of all the board, I'd like to record our thanks to John for his tremendous work for us over a period of time, and we will miss him. And I would also like to congratulate Cindy and Celine for taking on their new work roles. I'm sure that Cindy in particular is very glad to hear you describe it as simple, but congratulations to both of you, and good luck with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert. I'll move on to community-driven development sessions then. The engagement and feedback that we receive from the community is central to the design and delivery of the service. Just as the infected blood inquiry recommended in July 2025, we're fully committed to creating a formal, robust mechanism for community concerns to be raised and responded to. The board will know on the 14th of April, the Minister for the Cabinet Office announced a new route for the public to raise concerns with the infected blood compensation scheme. This will allow the scheme to provide feedback to both IBCA and the Cabinet Office on how the scheme is set up and administered. IBCA and the Cabinet Office work together on the development of the mechanism in order to ensure that the mechanism met the needs of the community. And IBCA held community-driven development sessions in March to enhance this process. And there were a number of key themes that arose in that session. The first was about being clear about our process and keeping the community informed. And we are trying to deliver that by keeping the process as simple as possible. Any query, either for IBCA or for the Cabinet Office, can be sent to a new dedicated email address, which is feedback-and-concerns@ibcaibca.org.uk. Any issues that for the Cabinet Office will be forwarded to them, and we'll confirm in writing that that is what has happened. We've established a tracking system for all feedback and concerns, and we will confirm and publish indicative response times for acknowledging receipt and providing information on how those issues are being addressed. The second theme that came back in the CGD was about making it easy to provide feedback or to raise a concern. And we're committed to making our channels accessible via multiple approaches. So you can email, post, phone via your claim manager, or see us at IBCA events. And we are establishing a single central team within IBCA dedicated to responding to feedback, ensuring consistency and accountability. The third of 5 themes that came from the CGD work was reporting and transparency. We were asked to ensure that there was regular, transparent reporting, and we have started and will continue to publish quarterly summaries of the feedback that we receive on our website. We can continue to do that every quarter. The fourth theme was one of acknowledgement, updates, and follow-up, and this is about ensuring that every piece of feedback that we receives a timely and appropriate response. And then finally, there was a theme around content and consistency. And this is striving wherever possible to ensure that all our responses and communications are in plain English and We've agreed that we will engage with our clinical experts where appropriate to respond to feedback and concerns, making sure that all the language is easily understandable and accessible. Those are the things we had from CBD on feedback, Robert.
Thank you. Any points or questions about that or anything else? Rob.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, David. I accept what you're saying. It's encouraging. I attended a community engagement panel. You were there in Birmingham, and a number of claimants said to me that when they received letters, they weren't personally signed by individuals in the organisation, which I think is unfortunate if that happened. But can you say anything about this?
Yeah, thank you, Rob, and thank you for the feedback at the event as well. What we have agreed now is that all those communications around those events will come with a signed letter and a signed a name. In many cases, it might be my name that's on those. But it was really helpful feedback, and we will change that to make sure that there's a name on those letters.
Thank you.
Any other points? Nope.
We got one from
Deborah.
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 Unless we're going to talk about it a bit later, I'd be interested to hear about how we feel that these community events are going. We don't have any specific objectives or targets or numbers, and I know that we do have to put the community at the heart of what we do. So I'm keen to understand how, when we're doing we're not just on broadcast, but we are actually hearing, and if we are hearing information from the people at these events, how do we then incorporate it into our thinking?
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. So first of all, I'll say thank you to everybody who comes to these events. And there are in our search for continuously improving, there are an improvement on the events we've run previously, which included online forums and online meetings. I think what we see is there is demand for them out there. When we opened the London event, we had to double the number of available slots because there was so much demand for people to come see them. And in particular, I think people value the opportunity to sit down with somebody who is a trained claims manager and understand who is it, what's the sort of person they're likely to be to have supporting them as they go through a claim. The second thing I think people have found really valuable is not to hear the updates that we give, but to ask specifically the things that they would like to hear about, and they get those answers directly from a claims manager, or where it requires somebody with a more specialist bit of information, like for example a lawyer. We have some of our other teams on hand as well to support for those more specialised queries. But I don't think we're in any way complacent about it. I think this is clearly a step forward in what we've been doing so far. At the end of all of those sessions, we ask everybody who came if they would be willing to provide feedback to us so that we can understand what worked and what didn't work, and can think about following this round of drop-in centres, what might we do next.
Chair, if I could come back.
Yes. Yes.
So what are the typical things that come up, irrespective of where you are in the cross nation? What are the typical things that the community say time and time again?
Yeah. So we regularly hear from lots of people questions around timetable. When do you think my cohort will be open, and when do you think my claim is likely to be heard? There's lots of questions about what is the process? How does a claim move forward? And is there anything I can do to prepare in advance that I am ready when my claim is asked to start? And then we also hear from people about, what support can I have, and do you provide support for me? And get questions around those things as well. So in a big, everybody has specific individual things they're interested as well. But in the big themes that emerge, those are the three that stand out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tim.
Yeah, thank you. I I attended the London drop-in session just as an observer more than anything, and I think the kind of practicality pieces aside, where people could get answers to some of their questions, I think there's a whole community aspect that we're potentially not doing. This is a safe space for people to come together to chat. Many of these would never have talked to close relatives, let alone friends or family. And I think that community aspect could do with some development, but obviously in the next round.
Would you like to comment on that, David?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting observation, Tim. And it's something we should think about how we can develop. But certainly, we have seen that there are people have congregated afterwards in the spaces that we've got available, and that has been hugely valuable to them. So we should think about how we can proactively help.
Yeah, and the CAC can help in that thinking. Cool.
David, do we at these meetings provide, apart from the one-to-one sessions obviously people can have with members of staff, do we have some sort of support service available as well?
Yes, so at the events, we always have the Red Cross who are there with us to provide people support, and at most of the events we've had the representatives of the psychological service there too. So there are support available at the events.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So David.
Robert is the last of my update.
Okay. So, colleagues, do you want to ask the Chief Executive about that he hasn't talked about?
Deborah?
Yeah, he hasn't spoken about the team and how you are faring. It's every meeting we hear, there's a huge amount of work that's being done. There's a huge amount of outreach where you've got the operations doing it. And I just wanted to see, you just wanted to share how you and the team are shaping up in steady state now.
Thank you, Deborah. Yes, I think the team are feeling well and confident, but very, very keen to get into a larger state of flow in the cohorts that we are developing. And it's a really important phase for us to get right. But there's a massive appetite in the organisation to get through into that state of flow. They recognise though that if we go too quickly, then we risk creating lots of problems in the future. But a sense that the organisation is well ready for that phase, and indeed I would say eagerly anticipating it.
Okay. I noticed you have team around the table, so maybe, well, no one has said anything different, I'm assuming, but I'm keen to make sure that you have the opportunity to have the resources and the conversation and some of the supportive challenge. Because we do hear that one of our strategic objectives is around pace. And I'd be keen for us to keep an eye on when we do know that our pace can be increased, notwithstanding the fact that we've opened up to almost every cohort now. There is something about just ensuring that we're timely in how we decide when the pace needs to up.
Completely agree, Deborah. I think that's one of the most important challenge functions of the board, is to continually test and press on, are we striking the right balance between having a system that will work in a real state of flow and getting there as rapidly as we can. So I think that's a very important challenge from the board and from the Quality, Finance and Performance Committee.
Thank you for that, Deborah. Actually, could I just pursue specifically with Cindy, please? past the question you asked, which is what you would say about what you would assess morale being like amongst our frontline workers at the moment.
I think it's fair to say that, as David just described there, that they're ready to go when we are ready to go and to take more claims in. There is a great deal of personal satisfaction that they get from the job, from helping people, from listening to people, from supporting them through the journey that they take these, people that are claiming compensation through. So morale's good. At the minute, morale's very, very good. Sickness, attrition, everything else is really healthy, as is our people engagement scores. So I would say across the piece, in the main, morale's very good. So about that.
Good, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. And please relay our thanks to your team for that. So, David, that you've completed your report, I think. So,
Yes, thank you, Robert.
We have a break on the agenda, which we better take in case people need it, and we will return at 2:00 to hear about business planning. In the meantime, we are adjourned.
Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies again for the sound issues. We understand that these may now be resolved, and hopefully you're no longer hearing an echo. There were a couple of things at the beginning of the call that we understand were particularly difficult to hear, and so we'd like to just repeat those. What we'll do is just do another quick round of introduction, so you know who everyone in the call is, and then David Foley, our CEO, will also clarify a point that we understand was sort of misheard due to the sound issues during the first part of the call. So Robert, would you like to start with your introduction again, and then we'll go around the room?
Well, welcome to everybody for the second half of this meeting, and I'm sorry about the sound issues. I'm Robert Francis. I am interim chair of the authority.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Foley. I'm the CEO of IBCA.
Hi, I'm Rob Behrens. I'm a non-executive director and deputy chair.
Hello, I'm Russell Frith. I'm a non-executive member.
Hello, I'm Hannah Probert. I'm the Director of Strategy and Policy.
Hi, I'm Victoria Brock, and I'm the General Counsel.
Hi, I'm Selina McLaughlin, and I'm the Chief Digital and Information Officer.
Hello, I'm James Alton, Director General in the Cabinet Office, the Cabinet Officer Observer on this board.
Hello, I'm Cindy Skeldon, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer.
Good afternoon, my name is Deborah Harris and I'm a non-executive director on the board.
Hi, Dan Hancock, Chief Financial Officer.
Hi, I'm Phil Evans, Head of Governance for IBCA. And then if we look over to the screen, Helen.
Hello, I'm Helen Parker. I'm a non-executive director on the board of IBCA.
Thanks, and Tim.
And I'm Tim Green, and I'm chair of the Community Advisory Panel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I turn back to
Thank you.
David had a point.
Thank you, Robert. I understand it was very hard to hear, so just wanted to clarify one point which I understand has been came across in the wrong way. The first is that we were talking about the provisional full year outturn for 2025 and 26. And in our provisional full year outturn for that year is a total spend of £126 million, which is against a total budget of £136 million, which is an underspend of around 7%. I get that it came across earlier on as an overspend, so just to make sure everybody's clear that that is in fact an underspend. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
you.
Sarah, back to the published agenda.
Thank you very much, Phil. So we then move on to the business planning item, which Hannah is going to lead us on.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I'm just going to give the board an update on the process of business planning and the next steps. So as the board knows, we're in the process of developing IBCA's first business plan. That's a really important step for us as we mature as an organisation to make sure we improve on the ways we're clear both internally and externally on what our priorities and goals are. We've been developing the plans, as I updated at the previous meeting, around 4 pillars. Those 4 pillars were developed through discussions with the board and across the organisation to identify our priorities. The first pillar is pay people, which is about how we deliver on our core objective to deliver compensation to everyone who is as eligible as quickly as possible. The core of that is some really important choices we've got to make about how we prioritise the development of our service, as well as implementing the changes in legislation that David referred to earlier, and which Cabinet Office announced last month. And we also need to manage the transfer of the IBCA schemes under that pillar, so that people who are receiving regular payments see no interruption in that support. That pillar is the centre of our mission, so it's fairly naturally where much of our planning work is focused, and I'll talk a bit more about the next steps on that. The second pillar is listen and act, which is about how, as we go about paying people, we improve on the ways that we're listening to feedback from the community and acting on it. Also, that's about building on what we already have in place. So the community advisory panel, which Tim chairs, our community drop-ins, which we've talked about, our regular engagement with community groups and charities, and also about how we want to embed and develop how we're responding to feedback and concerns that are raised with us. The third pillar is about maturing the organisation. So that's about how we build the organisation proportionately to our needs to make sure that we have the capabilities to deliver compensation and to meet our requirements as a public body. So we expect that will include some choices around the development of our capability strategies and around strengthening our functions. Finally, the fourth pillar is about planning for the future. So the first business plan is obviously focusing on this financial year, but we want to make sure that we spend some time this year putting in place clear plans beyond this year as to how we're going to complete that mission. So all of the work around those pillars is developing through discussions, including with the Community Advisory Panel. And I should say the Community Advisory Panel, as you've seen from a paper in the pack, has really constructively challenged our approaches on scaling up. So we've had some really detailed comments which we need to consider carefully in order to help the board agree a business plan that meets our strategic objectives. So what that means is that the next steps on this, so we're going to look to do work between now and the next board in July to look through the options we have for scaling up and prioritisation so that we can propose a business plan on the 7th of July for a decision. That plan will include a breakdown of the activities in each pillar and what success looks like for each activity so that the board can assure itself of whether we're on track through the year. And it will include, based on the prioritisation decisions that we make and the learnings at the private meters, an estimate for the number of cases that we expect to process in this year and in which order. And the other part of the business plan, also very importantly, is the budgets. So I'm going to bring Dan in to briefly cover that aspect.
Thanks, Hannah. So as Hannah outlined, there's three high-level areas of focus there, and we plan to deliver on those areas of focus within the spending review settlement for 2026-27, which is £171 million. That's revenue and capital budgets combined. Just to remind everybody, that does not come from and is entirely separate from the compensation funding which has been set aside for trading. So that's something that was annual expenditure. It's a different type of budget that's held separately. This is the money that's spent on the So recognising that the business plan, as Hannah's outlined there, is still being finalised, we're proposing the budget to start the year, which aligns to those top level areas of focus and funds and critical activity that we already have underway. We have a slide outlining the budget here. We're asking the board today to note the underlying principles of the budget that we're proposing here, and specifically that we've set a 5% efficiency target to each directed budget, and that creates a central pool of unallocated funding which we held back in reserve for emerging requirements in year and to help manage risks that crystallise during the year. And also to note that there is some volatility within certain areas of the budget, and it's particularly relevant to professional services, where the volumes and therefore total costs will be dependent on individual claim decisions. We've estimated the likely take-up for financial and legal services based on our experience so far, but we would reiterate that everybody who wants access to legal or financial support will receive it. Therefore, it's hard to predict with certainty how much we'll spend in total. Finally, I'll just note that we are still in discussions with the Cabinet Office to finalise the total budget number and in particular the split between revenue and capital budgets within that total. And we want to collectively assure with the Cabinet Office that we are able to manage the no risks. It won't be far from this number, so we've used this number as a figure to plan the two for the purpose of agreeing the budget today. So on that basis, we're asking the board to agree this overall position now. Then we would propose quarterly updates to the board on the in-year financial position and on any budget adjustments that are required each year. And that's you.
Thanks very much, Dan. So just to confirm what we're asking the board about today. So we're asking if you're content with our plan towards getting to a business plan in July, noting that there's work for us all to do collectively, taking into account that feedback from the community advisory panel that we've had, making sure we work through all those areas. And if you're content with our overall budget position, To start with, noting that we want to come back to the board on a quarterly basis to keep updating on those budgets. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just excuse me, so that I sort of understand where we're going. So far as the business plan is concerned, what we're aiming for as an outcome in July is having had a full consideration of all the factors that go into business planning, including, very importantly, the views of the community panel, much which is set out, I think, in the paper we're going to look at next. But secondly, to provide one of the things I think they're after, which is a degree of clarity about what we intend to achieve during the course of the year, all of which is to be designed to be within the budget we're being asked to approve, which is in itself based on what has already been allocated to us by the Treasury. Have I got that right?
Yes, that's exactly right, Robert. And as you say, I think it's really important we're able to set out what we think the business plan achieves, both for the community, but also so that the board can assure itself against effectively what we set out and believe we can deliver on these budgets and whether we're able to achieve that.
Right. So thank you for that. Comments, observations, or questions from colleagues?
Deborah has a hand up in the room.
Deborah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Hannah and Dan. So I'm going to ask probably obvious questions, but also sort of a challenge question. This is business plan and budget for 2026/7, by which time April, May, June. So we'd be 1 quarter in. So in effect, I think I'd want to have assurances in July that what we're agreeing is going to be achievable over the remaining 9 months. Because it's a 9-month business plan ultimately that we'll be looking at, because 1 quarter's already gone. Secondly, the slide. So on the slide, I think, and I know that there are opportunities for you to engage the board as we work to July, but on the slide it had reserves, and usually when you have I'm trying to make sure that it's not the sort of reserves that you have in a charity. We're not looking to carry forward. So if you could just share a little bit more about the 2 8s that I saw. So one was reserves, and the second number was the efficiency that you spoke to. I just wanted to understand if there was how those two are connected.
Yeah.
Shall I take the first question first? Yeah, Deborah, you're exactly right. I mean, as I say, we recognise that this business plan isn't happening before the start of the financial year. So everything we're talking about, directors, is what we can achieve in this financial year. And I think that's part of us maturing as an organisation, and as I say, taking the time this year as well to start planning for the future, so that hopefully next year we're more advanced when we're doing business planning. But yes, it's this financial year, so it's be across 9 months where the board agrees it.
And I think we did note, and you did note that partly one of the reasons that we're not having the conversation now, which is closer to the start of the year, is that you are having to take into consideration the feedback that you have received from community. I think it would be really important as you bring forward the business plan, those areas where we've either to either further explain or where we've taken on a direct comment from the community, that we reflect that skill, that we have that golden thread of putting community members at the heart of what we are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, we got some really useful feedback from the community panel. We talked to the board about that. We know the board wants to make sure we fully understand that we consider where that shifts any of our plans or changes our approaches. And I think we want to continue to work with the community advisory panel on this. So going back to them with refreshed plans and talking through where the board ends up recommending we go.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thanks, on the second question. You're quite right about the distinction. This is not a reserve in order to manage it. This is an annual budget, and no money will be carried forward. It's held in reserve insofar as it is unallocated at the start of the year, because we are holding it against known identified risks or areas of future spend. And we want to retain some flexibility, particularly while the business planning process concludes, to make sure we can target that funding in the right places.
And then there's also the efficiencies.
Yes. So after we've calculated the budget based on the critical activity already underway, we've applied a 5% reduction, which is effectively an efficiency target to each director's budget, just to ensure maximum value for taxpayers' money, and so make sure there's enough rigor and tension in there. that funding is what has formed the allocated funding. That's how it is.
Thank you. Just a final another comment. We have 8 strategic objectives, and here we heard about 4 pillars. I'm sure there are 2 critical. So I'd like to see how they all join up. So it'd be really helpful if in the plan we can see how those 4 pillars either contribute to or enhance the overall objectives that we have as an organisation that are longer than the 26-27 years. Thank you. And I feel comfortable to support this direction of travel too.
Thank you. Just one question from me, Dan. Is it where the very high level budget you've given us, we, as I understand it, you would intend to be bringing back to us every quarter news as to whether we're within it, outside it, whether there's serious diversion or whether we need to change in the light of experience. But all I imagine within the total figure on the bottom line.
Absolutely, I think we attempt to keep it reasonably similarly high level to the updates that we brought back to the board each quarter as part of a wider delivery update, so you can see what's being delivered for the money that's being spent. But there will, of course, be another opportunity to scrutinise in more detail the underlying level of spend beneath each of those lines as well.
We have Russell in the room, Chair, and I think Tim online. And you're on.
My microphone on. Tim, please. Have a go.
Yeah, very quick question from me. Do the financials include forecasting once we scale? Because obviously there's going to be more cost, I should imagine, at that point.
Short answer is yes, Tim. So it includes the full cost forecast for the year, which includes a lot of capacity to scale. There are then questions to be resolved through business planning about exactly how, when, what that looks like.
Yeah.
But the capacity is within those budgets for that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Sorry, Robert. Question, Dan. To what extent is your budget phased over the year in terms of, and leading on to the type of quarterly reporting you intended to bring? Is it simply divide by 4, or have we got anything more sophisticated?
Yeah, it's currently phased on a quarterly basis based on what we know about recruitment trajectories and on our major contract spend. So definitely not an exact science at this stage, typically until we complete business planning. But it's based on a quarterly view of what we expect to go out. And we can refine that as we conclude some business planning questions.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Anyone? Rob? Helen? And I then take it we approve, as Deborah put it, the direction of travel and as it were, the proposal for the overall budget with all the qualifications that surround that. Yes, that's good.
Yes.
So thank you very much, both Dan and Hannah, for that work, and to assure everyone we've got quite a lot of work to do between now and July in relation to the actual business plan and the explanation which will be required for whatever our decision is. But thank you very much, everyone, for the work done so far. So can I then move on to the next slot, which is for Tim to introduce the thinking of his panel, and we have had your paper, which thank you very much, and I've already indicated it's given us much food for thought already.
Yes.
But 2 things really, Tim. Please summarise, what you see as the really important points coming out of that, although I think we see what they are, but also your take on how the panel's going, whether you think you're getting the right level of support, and how you see your relationship as a panel going forward with the board.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, a bit of an introduction first, I guess. So the panel itself was formally brought together earlier this year and held its first meeting in March. we're a diverse group of individuals from all four corners of the UK, bringing with us very different lived experiences, both the historic schemes and now from IBCA itself. So, although the panel reports to the board, it's important to say that we are genuinely independent, and I believe that's a very positive thing. It allows us to speak openly and honestly on behalf of the community, provide constructive challenge where needed, and bring forward issues and perspectives that might otherwise not be visible. Some of the members of the panel have direct personal experience of the schemes themselves. Others have supported close family members through those processes. And some bring wider experience from campaigning, advocacy and community work. But what unites us all is a shared desire to help ensure that the voices and experiences of the community remain central to the work of IBCA. I think it's important to say that the panel has not been created simply to critique from the sidelines or hold to account in the traditional sense. Personally, I've never really liked that phrase anyway. Instead, we're here to support the board with its thinking and to provide challenge where appropriate, look at the policies, procedures and operational approaches, particularly through the lens of people who have direct lived experience of these schemes and the realities behind them. Our first substantive meeting took place on the 14th of April, where we discussed in detail the current test and learn approach, the operation of the model offices and the emerging complaints procedure. Naturally though, because it was our first full meeting together, our conversations went wider than the formal agenda. What came through very strongly was the level of anxiety and pressure still being felt across the community. While there's recognition that significant work is underway, there's a growing sense that delays themselves are further becoming a source of trauma for many individuals and families. One particular line in our paper captures it well. IBCA has been clear that it does not want to cause further trauma to the community through the claims process itself. However, the panel's perspective, the delay in processing compensation is causing this trauma. Our feedback paper to the board therefore focuses around several key themes. Firstly, communication. The panel feels strongly that the wider community needs clearer understanding of what IBCA is doing behind the scenes. What challenges is it facing? How decisions are being made as the organisation works towards scaling up. We recognise entirely that parts of the scheme are extremely complicated, operationally, legally and technically. But we believe that greater openness around those complexities will help build trust and confidence, even if those some of those difficult decisions or delays remain unavoidable. Secondly, pace and proportionality. The panel discussed at length whether there are opportunities to move some claims through the process quickly, particularly more straightforward claims, and certain estates where eligibility has already effectively been established through the previous interim payments. There is a strong feeling that a more explicit triage approach could help improve the throughput, whilst still protecting the integrity of the scheme and maintaining support for the most vulnerable and priority cohorts. Thirdly, evidence gathering and risk appetite. The panel recognises the importance of safeguarding public money and maintaining confidence in the scheme. However, there was also concern that some of the current evidence thresholds and operational processes may be too risk averse. Again, this comes back to balancing appropriate safeguards with the urgent need to deliver compensation without unnecessary delay. And finally, perhaps most importantly, the panel wants to see a genuine two-way relationship between IBCA and the community. We greatly welcome the recent open days and engagement activity taking place across the country. But the community also needs to see how its feedback is shaping process and operational decisions in practice. We fully appreciate that not all the recommendations or observations in our paper can be implemented immediately, and some may ultimately not be possible at all. However, one thing the panel feels very strongly about is that where suggestions are not taken forward, the reasons why should be clearly communicated back, not just to us as a panel, but to the wider community as well. That transparency is absolutely key to maintaining trust. It's also important to recognise that some of the issues raised by the panel may ultimately sit outside IBCA's direct operational control and instead fall within the wider government policy and legislation. In those circumstances, there is now a mechanism available to the panel to raise questions and concerns directly with the Cabinet Office where appropriate. And I think that this is an important development as these discussions continue to evolve. Looking ahead, there are clearly significant challenges still to come. The fourth set of regulations, the future integration of the support schemes into IBCA, and the broader scaling of the compensation service are all hugely important, time limited and complicated pieces of work. As a panel, we are keen to work closely and constructively with the board over the coming months and years to help get these things right. Ultimately, I think everyone around this table shares the same goal, to ensure compensation is delivered quickly, fairly, compassionately as possible for people who have waited far too long. Thank you. Any comments?
Thank you very much indeed for that excellent presentation. Before I open it up wider, Helen, is there anything you want to add? You were our liaison, non-executive director in relation to this meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think so in that role, you know, I see it very much as my job to help the panel be both effective and then be a sort of strong bridge, if you like, between the panel and the board, help us respond as fully as we can to the panel's input and their challenges and questions and comments. So I will try very hard to do that, do a good job of that. And I think all I would add to what, I mean, I think thanks, Tim, for articulating that so clearly, not only today, but also in your note to us. I think it's extreme, you know, you've taken a lot of comment there and woven it together in a really clear and powerful way. So thank you for the clarity, and thank you really for the rest of the panel, for everyone's really constructive, engaged. Everyone on that panel really wants it to be a success, I think, for the panel's benefit. So thank you everybody for their time. So yeah, no, that's all I would say, Robert. Having sort of you know, attended the last panel very much in an observer capacity and heard the debate, I feel very confident that the panel can help us be more effective over time, and I look forward to us giving a really full consideration to their comments.
Thank you very much, Helen. David, is there anything you'd like to say on behalf of the executive?
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Tim. It's terrific to see the community advisory panel in action, and it's a great addition to the work we do. First of all, thank you for a really clearly thought through paper and presentation. The first commitment I give is that we absolutely will, go through this in great detail and give it some really thorough consideration. It's one of the reasons that we've delayed bringing the business planning work to the board, because actually we want to digest the context of that paper properly, which has lots of proposals and principles for that. And you mentioned, sure, as important that there was not only a thorough consideration of it, but also a feedback given as to what works, what doesn't work, if not, why not? And very happy to give that commitment. We will make sure that we come back, explain, demonstrate, and show what we're implementing, what we are going to change, what we think works, what we think doesn't work. But I think, you know, it's a tremendous addition to the work that's being done, and really look forward to seeing what's.
David, thank you very much. Comments from other colleagues?
Rob?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much indeed for constructive, detailed engagement, which is treated with the utmost seriousness and importance by us on the board, and we will take it very seriously and reciprocate in kind. And I agree with you that it's about continuous engagement, not just a one-off throw by you, which we defensively respond to. That would be wrong, and I'm sure everyone agrees with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And obviously the CAP are here to help in some of that thinking if need be as well. So you can call on us at any point.
Thank you.
And thank you, Helen, for your commitment to getting us going.
Thank you. Any other comments from colleagues? And I can't see any of you.
No one else in the room, Robert.
No one else in the room. Tim, thank you very much. Can I just sort of add a general observation, which is, I think we're on to something very new here with this community advisory panel and its relationship with the board. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I can't think of any other arm's length body that is working in this way. And I think it's a reflection of the spirit which the inquiry wanted the scheme to work. You know, we can argue about the history, but we are where we are now. So I think we're doing something quite novel. It won't always be easy, but it's certainly new, and with a bit of a shoulder on the wheel could provide a very useful model as to how public services ought to work. But that's just a more general comment. So thank you very much for your very important part in that.
Thanks.
So let me move on then to something slightly less exciting. Russell, the report from the Audit, Risk and Assurance Commission.
Thank you for that, right, the Audit, Risk and Assurance Committee met in February. The main focus of that meeting was to talk about receive the external audit plans for the year, and indeed internal audits thoughts for the next year as well. That's typically what an audit committee will do at February meeting. We meet in just under a fortnight's time, and the main focus of that meeting will be progress on the annual report accounts, progress on the external audit, to receive internal audit's draft opinion on the control systems for 25-26, and to have updates on risk management, which I think will keep the committee occupied for the full 3 hours. Again, that is relatively routine work at this stage of the year for audit committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Russell. Any questions anyone has on that? No. Then we'll move on to Deborah, who wants our approval for the proposed terms of reference for the Quality Finance Performance Committee. Deborah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, as the board knows, we had a seminar in March, and in April we held our first meeting of the Quality Finance Performance Committee. The main aim of that committee is to have the conversation outside of the board over the things like pace and performance. We're not at all making any decisions in that committee, but it is very much an opportunity for people like Dan and Cindy to share the trend of how work is going. So we have in that first meeting, we did spend quite a bit of time going through the terms of reference. We have committed to doing another review of the terms of reference in about 6 months' time. It sounds like everywhere in the organisation we're doing the whole sort of test and learn, but if we're going to have the performance indicators that are relevant to driving forward the corporate objectives, then I think we need to give ourselves the flexibility to look at the suite of indicators that we currently have and change them as necessary. I would like to just say that I have been really impressed by the amount of work that's been happening over the short period of time, led by Cindy and Dan, in terms of the two Exco committees that have been looking at how not just service delivery, but also the enablement of service delivery and the performance indicators that come out of that. So with that preamble, Chair, I'd be, everybody has had a copy of the terms of reference and an opportunity to contribute to them. So I'm just looking for an approval at board level, noting that in 6 months' time, if there are any updates, it will be coming back to the board.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Does anyone wish to say anything, or can we rapidly approve these terms of reference? I see at least one nod. So that, and thank you. I know that Deborah, an enormous amount of work has gone into producing this document, particularly from you, and thank you for leading it in the way that you have. But so I think we can note that these terms of reference are approved. So thank you. So then finally, REMCOM, and I think that's for Helen to talk to us about, and also some more terms of reference.
Is Helen not?
I believe Helen.
Oh, is she gone?
Chair, in her absence, in a similar vein to the last.
I seem to be the member of the day here.
Yes.
I'm happy to speak as a member.
Called off. Keep on being called off the bench.
I am happy to. So I've just jotted down a couple of things. You can see that our proposed terms of reference to set out the purpose and responsibility of this committee. I wasn't sure if Jill was joining us, if there were any questions. Jill, head of HR. So we're namely, as the REMCO, we advise the chair on matters concerning appointments, staffing, remuneration of the execs within IBCA. I have to pause and go off script slightly, which is that there are other areas around people and workforce that REMCO has started to look at. I think that's one of the reasons why we're bringing forward a slight amendment to our terms of reference. I think it's really helpful that as an organisation we keep our terms of reference live to just reflect what we're doing as we're building the service. I think it's good that we build the corporate governance system around it. So you've had the terms of reference also to hand board and chair, so we're also moving that you will approve these today as well.
Deborah, thank you very much. Can we approve these terms of reference? End of agreement?
Yes.
And again, thank you for all those involved in doing that. And that, believe it or not, brings the formal meeting to a close 1 minute early, maybe 2 minutes early. But, so thank you very much for everybody. Unless anyone has anything further to add, I close the open session of this board.